Welcome to Mindset Profits. Have you ever had a situation where you start something, you are very excited about it, you run, and at a moment when you are proud that you're onto something big, you realize you missed a critical step? Well, today I'm having one of those moments, and trust me, this is one episode you are going to want to like, to share, to hit the subscribe button if you haven't, because many people ask me who are my mentors. You get to meet one of them today. Very excited to introduce him to you, and I trust me, you will love him because I do. So the channel is called Mindset Profits, and when I was speaking to him, he realized that I actually haven't done an official intro to what that name means. And that's what we are about today. We are going to unpack the vision behind the name. I don't get to do it alone. I get to do it with wisdom that is higher than I. It is exciting every now and then to say such things. So let me introduce you. And I won't say his names because he has a way of introducing himself that I will not do justice to. So my mentor, welcome to the channel. Welcome to this exciting episode.
Thank you so much, Masego. I'm also excited to be with you, my brother. The beautiful thing about mentorship is that it humbles you as a mentor. Because it's not that I'm that old from you, but it's that you just decided that my life experiences are worth you learning from. Now that's humbling to start with. But also it's beautiful then because I get to watch myself carefully knowing that you are watching, which brings accountability. So when you say mentor, it's more a responsibility for me, and I take it. And because I'm about God's work, mentoring a man like you is great then, because it's like we're going to come out right here. Beautiful. So my name is Mnqobi, wise man, Nyembe, Ka-Ntombela. But simply people often call me Ntombela, and I prefer that to be called Ntombela. And that's it. So that's my name.
Well, the last time we did a show on radio, you went a bit deeper on why. But I think because of the theme of the show, we don't have to get into that now. We'll have episodes where we talk deep about our history and how that impacts us and how we make decisions, how we live our lives. But today, you picked up something that was quite critical. And the minute you said it, I smiled and said, how did I miss it? It's important to be clear about what the vision you are trying to work on is. And for anyone subscribing, to be clear about why they should be a part of the community. So when I say Mindset Profits, what stands out for you?
In fact, even the fact that you're calling me a mentor, you are earning profits from something I've struggled through my life. You are profiting from my mindset. That's what it is. I paid a price to have such a mindset. And at critical junctures in my life, when I decided to have such a mindset, I was deliberate about things I'll do and not do, and pains I'll take and not take. And therefore, now that we are sitting today, it's at a point of return on investment. You are seeing it as a profit. But somebody at home might be thinking, so if then you are saying mindset profits, you are actually saying there is a mindset that I'm required to have in order to profit in my life. And yes, you are right. That's what I mean. So mindset and profits are two words that as you bring them together, you are saying, I want to profit from my mindset. But you're also saying, I want to have a mindset that will generate profits. So it's two ways. I'm profiting from my mindset, but I want to have a mindset that accrues, attracts, or generates profits. And therefore, you can't just act willy-nilly anyhow, because then it means you are seeing yourself as an entity. You are seeing your life experience as that of an entity. Therefore, even when you fail, you're not just going to be falling on your face and give up. You're going to go back and say, how then do I calibrate, package, and avail these lessons for the next generation to learn from me? Then all of a sudden, everything becomes purposeful. So there is a mindset in life on anything. There's a mindset in making decisions. There's a mindset in ambition. There's a mindset in relating. There's a mindset in staying positive. There's a mindset in being honest with yourself. There's a mindset in being true to yourself. All of that is a mindset. And I would like us then, at least once a month, to sit and unpack what that is, so that then this podcast makes sense. Because as you interview some of these incredible people, like Doc that you interviewed last, people only see the mindset and the profits there, and it becomes like, oh, can I be like that? So I want us to come back then and say, yes, you can. And she started somewhere as well. I did. And I get to then share that life with you. And it's a conversation that would
and
have.
it's beautiful. And actually, on the flip side of that is there is also a mindset that doesn't give you profit.
True.
A mindset that actually guarantees that you will not get profit.
True. And therefore, coming to this podcast then, be willing and open-minded to pick up nuances, pick up things that you are then saying, okay, I don't have to do that stupid move that he did in his life to then have a better outcome. Oh, no, I don't have to treat my relationships the way he did his. Because I get to show you the scars of my soul and the scars of my journey. It doesn't have to cost you as much as it costed me. That's what standing on the shoulders of giants mean. It means you learning from others. And that's the wisest way to learn, by the way. And this podcast must then help in that you'd have the guest and then you and I come and have chats about what mindset does it take to build that?
To build that.
Am I on the way to that? Because success is not an accident. Success doesn't fall, boom, I'm successful. It's a deliberate thing that you do, and certain things you do and you must do.
You heard that. So we will have episodes where we do reflections on some of the interviews and answer the question, what mindset did the guest have to get the result that you are so that dazzles you? What mindset did the guest have to achieve that goal? And I think those will be great. I'm looking forward to them. Now, if someone is listening to this and wondering, what's your story? I can summarize it and probably not do justice to it, but I have one very cool summary that says...
I would like to hear it.
This is an amazing man who could not finish his matric, but grew himself beyond that limitation to become a CEO, multi-million rand company, double their revenues in his tenure, and consult doctors, PhDs, executives.
It sounds unbelievable, right?
Without a metric.
It sounds unbelievable, yes.
That's my short summary.
It's a nice summary. It's just that you are taking the latter part of the summary. Let me take it a bit back, just a little bit back.
Please do.
So I'm a rural boy from KwaZulu-Natal.
I missed that part.
Yes,
that would have
from
been.
KwaZulu-Natal, KwaNongoma, esigodini sakwaDabazi. So it's an area called Dabazi, raised by sort of the Ntombela family and the clan. So as a child of the community, the reason why I use Nyembe, Ka-Ntombela in my surnames, it's because when my mom got married to a Nyembe, she then came back home when the marriage ended, and the ex-husband did not come in the house to explain what had happened. So then the elders said, any child you give birth to must then carry this surname. Because if we do not honor that, he would come back and charge us and make us pay damages. So though I wasn't a child of Nyembe, I then had to carry the surname because the elders said so. But then I had to go back and realize, even though I'm a child of Nyembe because my mom had been lobola and married by this man, I was also a child of the Ntombelas, which was my maternal surname, the mother that had raised me. So that's how then my name comes. So I was a child of the community, truly through and through. A special kid, by the way, in that there would have been a lot that would have been a shame about me. But then my grandmother and my grandfathers, which were 10 of them, my great-grandfather, whom I saw, I don't have much of recollection because I was young, and then the entire community was there to raise me. So I grew up knowing from the get-go that I was smart, I was clever, I had great memory, I could read things. Here's a funny story. One of my uncles kept vinyls. And I was the only one who was allowed to pack them because I knew how to pack them alphabetically.
How old were you at the time?
I think I must have been 4 or 5 years, young age then. Yeah, so I was the one that came out knowing that I could do that. So all of a sudden, I then got to be advanced from others. Even though we were 23 in a household of 23 boys and girls in terms of cousins and everyone, I then became this special child. So it started with me knowing that I had a mind that was different, a mind that was unique, a mind that was beautiful. But here I am then doing well in school, go to boarding school, start a business there, and then I impregnate my high school sweetheart. And then I must choose between a child and school. And I couldn't live with myself denying the pregnancy. So I said yes, I did. And then I had to make a choice.
And there were people encouraging you to deny the pregnancy.
Yes, because then it would have meant staying in school. So I then said, no, I'm the father. And in any case, she had been kicked out from her house. And we're now squatting together, 18-year-old and sort of a 16-year-old, 16-year-old squatting together. So I was then forced to drop out of matric. Being a smart student, by the way, being clever, being all of that, number one in my school and all of that. I remember, Dando, that I said we were writing, I think, paper 1 mathematics matric when I had to leave. Yeah. I remember saying to my peers and schoolmates, I hope in 20 years' time when we meet, you'll be somebody's, because I for one, would be somebody.
Okay.
And I say this walking out from my education, knowing that I won't do medicine and be a doctor anymore, which is what I would have been. That was the vision initially. Yes. So I had to go find a job. And that's how my story started. So when I say mindset shift, I really mean it, because in the 23 years of my career, I've built it without formal education, but I'm as educated as they come. And that is all mindset.
And that comes out when you speak, definitely. But when you say you had to find a job, and there's something you said when you were leaving to your friends, that I hope you will be somebody because I definitely will. Was there a reason behind why you were saying that, and where was the conviction coming from? And then what's the job you walked into?
I think I was I was making a promise to myself. I think I was committing myself in public to say, this is not the end of my life. Because I was now resenting this education that I wanted so much, but for me to have it, I needed to deny that I was the father of this child that was coming. So this education already was making me choose it or my child. And therefore, I was now saying, I don't care about it, but I will be as educated. Because it would take more than standing in front of a class or having a book in my hand in terms of with a teacher or a lecture, but I will actually teach myself. I knew that I was already a reader, and I haven't read at that time. So I think that is what I was doing. I was doing a promise to myself. I was still a young man, 18, so it might have been attitude and whatever as well, but I know that I was making a promise to myself. And I remember that to this day, that whenever then I would face challenges, I would remind myself that, hey, in 20 years' time, I want to be somebody.
Okay.
And the job that I went to immediately, being a popular kid in my town, was I started pushing trolleys to make ends meet to go be with my mother, who was miles away, that I'd not seen in a while. Okay. So I pushed trolleys to help at Spa and make that money. So you can imagine from being the coolest
same
child,
community.
Still in the same town. I had now moved from the rurals to sort of a town. I mean, Mnqobi is a town with one street, one tarred main road. So it's still a town, So I was pushing trolleys there to make ends meet, because we needed to take a taxi or bus from Mnqobi to Emandeni with this pregnant girlfriend of mine at the time. So did that job, and immediately then, once I could make the money, and I wasn't even making the money for rent now, because remember, we are now living together with this lady that had been chased out. So then few months, I think few weeks, then I could make the money, and I left and went to Emandeni. And then my story started there when I got to Emandeni then.
When you say you were educating yourself, how did that process look like, the years that followed?
So, I mean, I loved words and I loved reading. I grew up with the latrines toilets. So it's like your drop toilets in the rurals. And therefore you'd use your newspapers and stuff to help yourself or clean yourself. And therefore I would read those. I started as that. And then before I knew it, I would borrow books now. And I had this principal who was a relative, my primary school principal who was a relative. She was sort of a family relative who would come and report on our behavior and all of that, and who was really committed to my education. I mean, I was clever, but not disciplined, not committed. But
Yeah.
she was just on my case all the time. If I'd bunk classes, she'd come and get me. And then she started then organizing books for me and readings here and there. And I knew then that actually I enjoyed reading. But once I turned 18 and I wasn't getting this matric, I started then investing in self-help books. There was a point I was reading not less than 10 books a month. And I had a big backpack with books in it. And there was a library that I'd go to because I couldn't afford the books. So I had a library card and I'll go get those books. And it was self-help, different faculties as well. So I'll read about philosophy, psychology,
at
Plato,
18.
Socrates. Yes. Remember, if all you are doing is you are not going to school, you are there. You get to explore the library and you see different sections. Yeah. And I didn't have anything to do, remember. For 18 months, I was volunteering at a Love Life Youth Center, meaning I wasn't being paid, but I had all the time. So I'll go to a library and look at different sections. And then move from Mandeni then to Durban. Then I got better libraries in Durban, the City Library, for instance. Therefore, there you had sort of better materials there in terms of books. But I was already reading your Socrates, your Plato's, Greek mythology, and those things between 18 and 24. I was already delving deep into those.
When I hear a story like yours, there's something that sits not so well in my heart, but I feel quite strongly about it. When a young child fails matric and commits suicide, and I hear your story, because I think what people may miss is you were about to finish matric when they were forcing you to choose between your child, and you could have lied in 3 months and finished, but you stood true to your values. You didn't finish the matric, but this child fails matric and commits suicide. I'm trying to balance the difference between someone like you who will lose it all, because when you live the way you left, you have no metric completely. This one maybe has one subject, but you build yourself from completely no certificate.
I'm smiling because probably at 18 years, that was not the first life-threatening reality I faced.
Really?
No. At 8 years, I had already started a business. Though we were from a royal house, the Ntombela clan, my house was the smallest house, was the insignificant house. So our great-grandfather allocated more land to my grandmother because she knew this was a small house that was insignificant. So we had more land but no seedlings. And I remember then, around 8 years, I would tell my brothers and cousins to say, we need to go to those who had seedlings and offer to plow for them, and therefore keep a portion of the harvest. And the majority we give to them. And we had reservoirs without seedlings. I remember that my grandmother was a medium, a spiritual medium, so people will come and she'll assist them in terms of praying for them, and she was a Zionist spiritual medium. But people were not paying when they'd come for the service. And I would worry because she was really doing the work and praying and seeing this thing and helping these people, but not getting paid. And I remember saying, Grandma, I think I must do something here. And I became a finance minister around that age as well, where I'll meet somebody that was coming to be assisted at the gate and say to them, what's your issue? And I'll sort of do your baseline, you know. What are the issues you're dealing with? Is it about you or your kid or your family or whatever? And she'll tell me, and I'll know, okay, this is complex. It's only about you finding a job, or it's about you dealing with witchcraft. And I already know what my grandmother is going to do because I'd been by her side for some time. And then I'll say to her, do you have your own water? She says, no, I don't have. And then we'll give you an empty cold drink bottle for you to go get your water, because it had to be running water that you get. And then that we're already charging you for, that empty bottle that we are giving you. And then you go get your water. If you can't, can we go get the water for you? And then I'll send one of the cousins or siblings to go get the water for you. We are already charging you on top of the bottle.
The price increases there.
Before my grandmother even sees you.
And you were 8
years
doing this.
That, yes. So then already I was like, okay, we changed our reality completely. Even the roofing grass, I mean, we had thatch roofing grass, because I remember fields you'd have, and then on the sides of the fields you'll have these long grass that we are using for roofing. And therefore I knew that was value, so we'll cut that and give bundles to the Wello family there, the Nkosi family that had tuck shops, and then we'll give it to them. They would give us then chicken head and feet for four sheaves of grass. And then they would keep those for us. And then sometimes I'll go and say, now we have 4 chicken heads and feet pack, can we give it full chicken to negotiate? So by the time I was 18, being disappointed in matric, I'd seen it all. I mean, I'd gone to a boarding school at 12 with 1 pair of pants and I think 3 shirts, one long sleeve and two short sleeves. And when I got there, I started a laundromat and shoe repair business, and I had more shoes and more shirts. So at 18, though others would say it was sort of life-threatening, it wasn't anymore. I knew I was going to find a way. I'd found the way before. So in answering you then, somebody that often takes their lives, I guess, is because they don't see any way beyond the now.
Or they even had to fight before.
Yeah.
This
so in other words, you have
first big challenge.
And it seems like it's the end of my life, and therefore I feel like, let me take my life. For me, it couldn't be. Remember, I had already made a promise that I'm going to be somebody in 20 years' time. 2, choosing a child meant there was now another soul that was coming that I'll be responsible for. So the more and more then I was putting myself out there, was the more and more I was making it impossible for me to then be selfish about choices. I'm not saying someone who takes their lives, they're selfish. I'm just saying sometimes they don't see beyond themselves and the now. But I'd seen that. I mean, I had already busted my eardrum in boarding school fighting with boys that wanted to ill-treat me when I knew that I could fight. I mean, I had fought as a head boy. So at this point, I think it was more like my mindset, again, coming to the name of this podcast, my mindset had a lot in it as an arsenal of weapons.
You had been building it.
I had been building it. So now when I had to deploy it, there was something. So in other words, if this was a bank account, I had put so much in my knowledge and information in reading other people's stories that had failed, reading other people's stories that had failed without limbs, some that had accidents and been in a coma for months and come out and still be great. Someone who could
and there are many like that.
Zip and clothe themselves with feet, and someone who's already in the Paralympian and doing crazy, amazing stuff. Because I had been exposed to other lives that mine was better off compared to them, even though I now didn't have a matric. I was like, it didn't feel like it was worth taking my life for. In fact, I remember saying there are 2 things I would never do, and I still say, take my life or stand at the robot and beg. Why? I'll do something about those. I'll do something about those. If I were to be
take
put,
my life,
I'll never be on the road beg. Because I'll use the time to do lawns and mow the lawns and do whatever. So instead of beating myself up or not, it doesn't mean I don't experience traumas and frustrations, but I'll have other avenues to deal with them instead of take my life. So as you get this mindset and build it, you get to be greater in your own mind and realize, I can actually step out of my own frustration and look at myself frustrated. So then it's not the end of the world.
If there's a young person that listens to you now and feels like, I want to make this practical for me, I haven't had the challenges, but I want to still build that strong mindset. I haven't had to fight like you are fighting. Be an entrepreneur at 8 or at 10. My life has been fairly okay, but I feel I need what you had.
I think it's more the parents that I would speak to, not the kids. Because kids are born with curiosity.
Yeah.
Kids are born with curiosity. When a child is born, every child thinks they're all that. What happens between when we are born and when we are 18 is that we are told, no, you can't. No, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? And therefore, I would say that's where the problem often comes. But kids are born thinking they know it all. Look at a child who's rolling at the mall crying for chocolate. That takes audacity. To cry for somebody's money, which is your parents' money, for a chocolate, and then even roll on the floor. They don't care who's around because they're selfish like that, which is not bad. They're self-centered like that. So kids are born like that. But as we grow older, we get chipped away, and our confidence gets chipped away. I mean, I had a brother that I come after who'd fix things, but for him to fix radios, it meant he would break them. Now, in breaking them, then you need a parent that understands that breaking means fixing. Others would punish you for that, and then you'd never touch that radio again. What does it do, though? It narrows, because the mind, back to the mindset.
Yeah.
The mind is such a weird organ, because it's got a brain which has got your frontal lobes, your occipital lobe, all your parietal lobes, all these other regions of the brain. The brain does that, but the mind is the combination of the activities of the mind. When the mind is exposed, it grows. So if you give it more knowledge, it grows. So if you take a child that is 2 years and take them to mainland China, they'll speak Mandarin easily. Than if you take an 8-year-old there. They would never, because they are pliable at that time, and therefore their neuroplasticity is there. So unfortunately then I'll say to that person, go back then and realize you have it in you to have this mindset we are talking about. You may need to go back to those that said you can't and sort of remove their story so that it's not your story.
All right, I think the last one to wrap this bit up is, if then someone says, all right, so this is impressive, you build yourself up, but how did you become a CEO of a multi-million rand company without a metric? How did the CV look like to even get through the door?
So even though I didn't have a metric, I had studied books on like MBA, MBA for non-MBA people.
Oh, okay.
So I had studied, because I'm systemic in my approach, and therefore I have a systemic mind. I had studied those things. So when I started my first business then, after consulting and running for Love Life, and because that's another thing that's important, I volunteered a lot. Now, volunteering is powerful then to build a mindset, because it meant I went into a space and got to be exposed in an industry before I could be paid. Now, therefore, it means I needed to commit more than just getting a salary. I need to commit, this thing had to be meaningful for me to stay in it and not get paid. And by the way, what was weird is that I was going to public schools doing motivation around with Sunlight Bar Soap as a roll on, and still saying to kids, you can do it. Without a metric, and saying to kids, you can still do it. Now, that's weird. That's weird to do that, but I was already out there. And the mind is powerful then in that way. Whatever it gets exposed to, it accumulates and builds itself around. And therefore, my knowledge then started growing. I had volumes of knowledge growing. I mean, at some point, I became a stoic, and I was doing stoicism.
Yeah.
So my philosophy at that point was at a point where I was neither in pain or in pleasure. I was indifferent. and I was following your Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. So I'd read those guys. So I would play these things in my own reality and my own life, but I volunteered a lot. So that's one. So in volunteering, though, even though you were not paying me, I wanted to learn the totality of your industry or knowledge.
Okay.
So if it was a training, I would learn the totality of training. What's a classroom like? What's a setup? How do you do a lesson plan? How do you deliver it? How do you evaluate? And then I got exposed to accredited learning. Then I had to learn what that is. Skills development, facilitation. Remember, it's all in the line of public speaking, but I want to do the whole industry. That then it meant I was impressive in presenting my cases to people. So when I changed then from training to consulting, this guy said, you've done this consulting with us now for a few years. Don't you want to come in and show us? I was like, yeah, I can. And they're like, okay, 5 years CEO, chemical business. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I went in there naive as I could be because I didn't know much about the space and that, but I was determined to learn. Guess what? I walked in the first time and I told them I'm going to be the CEO that has got the lab coat, the white coat, and the blue suit in terms of overalls. And therefore, evenings I'll go, during the day I'll go and observe them. When we send them for medicals, I'll go and do my medicals. When every 2 years we did a forklift license, I said I'll also want to learn how to operate a forklift.
As the CEO.
As a CEO, and got my own license. So sometimes during a break, if I had coffee, I'll go and watch the plant and saw what they were doing. And then I went up and I was like, the hoppers, your machines, show me. And then I learned how you run it. That's a mindset to want to be a student. So my ignorance at the beginning was not a limitation. It was a challenge for me to say, I want to do this. And therefore, once you give an opportunity, it doesn't matter what I don't have. I have my mindset. I would learn and I would outlearn you. I would outlearn you because I'm determined, by the way. And I did. And before you know it, the majority shareholder hears you speak like him. All of a sudden, you are telling their story, their narrative, the way they tell theirs. It's like, who are you? It's like, how do you know all of this? Like, I've been paying attention. And I've been asking your peers as well. If they come and see you and your friends and you're having coffee with them, I want to know. So how do you know them? How do you know the founder? How was they? How were they when they were still employed? And when then I had to put that story together, impressed, because for the first time, here was a person who was not a shareholder, who had no interest in equity, who was just a CEO, but who was loving their brand like them. And I think it was a mindset thing at the time. And really now, it meant that I applied all the things I'd learned in the MBA book, in this book, in that book, I got to now implement. Because here's an institution, I was the one who set up my own board to say I wanted to be serious. I was the one who said to the shareholder, before you give me a contract, get somebody from HR to give me a proper profile and proper performance measures and all of that. Give me stuff. And so that I sign a proper contract. I can't just be parachuted as a CEO without a matric. So therefore, once I got in there, I had deliverables, I had things I report on, and I requested I hire my own CFO so that I control also finance and how it runs. And I brought a friend that I had worked with as in consulting. We went there, and when we were now bulldozing and changing the space, we were ready, and my mindset was ready. So that's how it happened. But even that became a university in itself, because then I got to learn a lot about that industry and the people there.
And the beautiful one, what would you say worked for you to succeed and double their revenues, an already big company?
Well, the first thing, I made sure that the team inside understood what we were about. I made sure, I had learned somewhere in the philosophy book that this one guy went in and found the guys that were doing bricklaying, building a church, a cathedral. And he asked bricklayers of this one church to say, what are you doing? And a bricklayer will say, I'm laying bricks. A guy who's doing a painting would say, I'm painting. And he didn't feel like they were connected to what they were doing. And then he met this other crew that was building another cathedral. Whatever he asked them what they were doing, they would all say, I'm building a cathedral. So even when they were laying bricks, they didn't say, I'm laying bricks. They would say, I'm building a cathedral. Meaning they had a holistic mindset. That this small task, small as it may be, it's part of the bigger vision and the bigger picture. So I had to implement that with my people. And therefore I had to make sure that those that were wearing blue collars, they were not leaving their brains at home just because they're blue collar workers. I needed them here. If you made a mistake and you had cross-contamination or wasted a fragrance somewhere on your solutions, I didn't want to just say oops and write an incident report. I wanted to explain why. What about that cost? Where is your money going to come from? Where is our earnings going to come from? So I started there, worked with the guys. And there was a lot we dealt with, by the way. Union staff, unhappiness, jobs were not graded. They were not sure if they were progressing in their careers. So I started there. Once that was coming together, I then went to clients and met clients. I reinstated our commitment to their specifications, to their contracts. And therefore, I would commit and say, if we delivered on time, and you need us to do more, then we won't pay for overtime. You'd pay for that overtime because we've done our part. But I inherited a company that was just paying for overtime, even if it was not their fault. So I went then to the client and said, okay, here are the measures, here are our deliverables. If I meet them, then you need me to, I will. And then we started then doing even night shift. There was only day shift. So we'll even do night shift, meaning then we could have shadow staff and whatever. And therefore, the guys that were there for long could now teach new guys. All of a sudden, it was fun to be at work and doing that. And clients were like, we've been with this company for 17 years. We've never seen the owners. Not because they didn't want to meet these guys. They were so busy building this thing they'd been building for too long. But you see, I was a new guy that was coming in. It was already built. I had to do something else. So I was like, let's meet the clients. And we met the clients. And they were like amazed at even the progress that this business had made. I mean, at some point, these guys thought, oh, we thought you were just a tuck shop business. And they're like, you have processes? Like, yes, we do. Oh, here's the fun part. I found that the invoices were not done properly. And I was like, why? Because we are delivering. There's a truck leaving every 30 minutes. There's a truck going. There were 2 trucks when I got there, 8-tonners and 10-ton. And they're like, but we're delivering. Why are we not paid? And it turns out that this client that they were using, which is Unilever, you would have to do your delivery notes on one system and then do your invoicing on another system, which was called TradeShift. And the guys had not invested in that. I said to my CFO, we're going to crack this system. We call those guys and say, teach us. Guess what? In just invoicing the previous invoices, we could recover 2 million rands in the 3 months. Because it was money that they were going to write off. Because they were not properly invoicing. They were putting delivery notes as proof of delivery, when actually they needed to use purchase order numbers.
How did you pick it up, though?
I asked the client, remember, I assessed the client, why when we are doing so much, you are not paying us on time? They're like, no, you are not invoicing on time. Like, no, we are invoicing. They're like, no. The invoice on the system, but the referencing is wrong. We don't pick the invoice based on the company name. We pick it based on the purchase order, because purchase order, that's the budget.
And this had gone on for years.
For years. Once we mastered that thing, then yeah. Now, instead of just doing many transactions, we could build up. And I remember at one point we were invoicing for more than $1 million a month. And they're like, the bank was even saying, have you found a new client? We're like, no. We're just learning more in terms of the client. So those are the things I did. But can you see, though, wherever I go, I've got this mindset that wants to learn, that wants to prove itself, but also that wants to leave a mark when I'm gone. And that, by the way, is my trademark.
There's something you said, though, before, that you would wait at night when others have left and clean. What was that all about? And did you see it visibly have an impact on the team and the culture?
So one of the things then that I had to learn with the mindset in answering that was that I'm not just my mind. Mm-hmm. I do have a powerful mind, but sometimes my mind gets frustrated. Sometimes I get too worried. And I'd seen the guys that the memos that I'd read, and people were frustrated with themselves, and they'll come to the pinnacle of their career, but they're frustrated. I'm like, I don't want to be like that. So I was already plowing ahead of time and paying it forward. So I then stumbled on spirituality. Remember, I was raised by my grandma as a spiritual medium. Yeah. But I didn't understand spirituality. So I then got introduced to that. And I was like, I want to study God differently. I just don't want a God I'm going to go cry to. I want to know this God. I want to interrogate this God. In interrogating the God, I stumbled on spirituality. And then I got to realize everything is created twice. First as a thought, or in the spirit as a wish, then in reality as a physical thing. So then I realized there was power in spirituality. So, meaning then as a CEO, I knew that to be a leader meant the environment will take the shape of a leader. That's what J.C. Maxwell said. So meaning then I was aware that being a CEO, whether this place will be clean or on time, it will depend on my leadership style. Okay. So to do that then, Dando, they would leave at 4, and therefore I'll change from a white coat into a blue uniform with safety shoes, because I had them, and my goggles and stuff, and I'll go to the back by the compressor room and take this cleaning machine, which you need to fill it with water and start it, and it runs, and I'll do that, the whole 2,500 square meters warehouse. Guess what I was like doing? Praying. Okay. God, this is my tenure. Help me here. May these people buy into my vision. May they be honest. May they find fulfillment in what they do. And in the morning, they'll come in and find it clean. And they'll be like, did you hire consultants? And I'll be quiet about it. One day, somebody caught wind of it. And they're like, he cleans. Guess what? Once they realized, they now wanted to clean before they leave. Because even the CEO is cleaning. But I was just doing it just to pray and just to fortify the space and say, Lord, take over the space. Help me. You know I don't have a matric. May I be hidden so that you shine. May my mind be okay. May I not be limited by my own mindset or lack thereof. So I was really praying, and I'll clean sometimes from 7 o'clock until 2 in the morning. Goodness. But then guess what? Because I cleaned it so well and knew it so well, you couldn't bullshit me about that. I knew it like the back of my hand. So that's how you could pick things up. So if you had hidden things and there were materials and products that were hiding so that you steal them through the back door, you couldn't anymore. And therefore theft went down. Horseplay, which is playing with machines, went down. Because then I could tell. But sometimes, you see now the power of learning from these guys when I came in. Yeah. Sometimes they'll leave a 1-ton baler on a hopper, decanting and go. But this thing is tied with a rope. So chemicals will sort of escape. And then they would wonder why you have so much on the floor. And what I'll do then is I'll go up and take that crane thing and I'll try it. Because I knew they taught me, so I'd run it. But then I'll say to them, you left that thing there, but I changed it for you. Next time I'll charge you. And therefore, because I could do it, then it's like, why can't you do it? And then all of a sudden, when people were fixing machines, they'll come as consultant. I'll say to my guys, don't just take your scuffed in and go eat. Watch that guy as he fixes the machine, because that's your machine. When it's broken, you should be the one that gives it at least your own informal diagnosis. All of a sudden, then everyone was in love with what they're doing. I think when I'm done, it's because I take myself seriously. Whether I'm picking to one person or a group of people, it's just my mindset. I value what I do and my contribution.
And you lead at a level of being a role model.
Yes.
Just setting the standard.
Yes.
And developing people.
Yes.
I think
Had I had matric and degrees, maybe I would have been too aloof. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like God was using this to humble me, to say, I want you to be on your toes all the time.
All the time.
Because you don't have anything to show that you know. So therefore I'll knock and say, I want to prove myself. Oh, there's nothing as nice as proving yourself and riding up than thinking you know it all and being demoted. Yeah, so that has been my life.
Beautiful. All right, so you have an interesting way of defining profit, the profit portion. And I know you have something to share with us. How do you define this profit? When I say mindset profit, the profit section.
So because the mind is the computer of the human body. The mind is the computer. You can't blink or remember something if the mind is not active. I mean, I just watched now on Netflix a show, Love on the Spectrum. It's people that has autism, where you can see where the mind is not fully functional the way they want. So the mind is powerful. Now, because the mind is powerful, it means if you focus on developing this mind, all that you are chasing for or looking for, you can attract with this mind.
Okay.
So the first thing then that you must do with a mindset profit, or a mindset that profits, is that you must be a lifelong learner. A mindset that profits develops itself because it wants to be better every year.
Okay.
That's one part. Now, developing that is important then because it means you apply yourself. But also then, a mindset that has profits chooses what it does, and it's careful on decision making.
What do you
mean? It doesn't work with just what everyone is doing. It questions why.
Okay.
It doesn't just go with the flow, because that's that fish. It can swim against the current sometimes. Why? It knows that everything starts with the mind and the mindset. Now, for me, then, when we're saying mindset profits, yes, you learn from others because they've done well, but you then go back and say, if they can, I can also. Now, a mindset like that then is great then, because all of a sudden you become your own competition. But also you stop being a victim, because you start realizing everyone is dealing with life. Everyone is struggling with life. So you can't then be beating yourself up and complaining and whatever. Yes, you must take a moment and sort of hurt and do the feeling and like, okay, I'm sad with this, but quickly move on. Why? The mindset must constantly be moving. So in this case then, I have a feeling that when you started this podcast, you wanted to interview people that when we as the audience listen to, we feel like, wow, I'm not just looking at what they've accrued or benefited as value. I also am interested in their story. The how did they do it? Now, that's powerful then, because it means even when you are going now to study a degree, you're not just going to say, I want to be the top of my class. Not really that. Because that's what we're talking about competing. We are now saying, if I do this, I'm going to apply all of me. And that's discipline. I'm going to do what I have to do when I have to do it, whether I like it or not. Now, all of a sudden, the mindset that profits then seems like maturity. All of a sudden, you see two 15-year-olds or two 30-year-olds, but they're not behaving the same. One is behaving older, and one is behaving more responsible.
And it's the other way around sometimes.
And it's the other way around sometimes. And yes, then, as you invest in your mind won't let you down. I'm telling you, it won't. Mine hasn't. Because then when I meet now with someone who has a PhD, I'm not ignorant. So not having matric is not ignorance at all. I just couldn't sit for it. I couldn't then study it. But I'm a student of life.
And that is apparent. That is obvious. Let's broaden the definition of profit. to mind, spirit, body, because
So,
you
yes.
have a broader way of looking at it than just financial.
In fact, what's interesting, we could start here, Dando. When people are realizing that they're studying, often they study to get a job, which is a wrong mindset. Because to study to get a job, then it means you must wait for the employer to employ you. But someone who has a mindset like mine, they don't wait for the employer. They create the employment. In other words, they shift from employment to deployment.
Yeah.
It's a skill that you can employ, but a talent and a gift must be deployed.
Oh, please repeat.
It's a skill that can be employed, but a talent and a gift must be deployed.
Skill is employed, the talent is
Deployed, and gift is deployed. If you see a music maker, say you take the Mapiano guys, if you force them to do it and you're not deploying them and you make them feel like they're employed, they won't give you good tracks. What has happened? It's still the same guy that is doing this. No, they are feeling like employed. They are feeling like employees. Skill you can employ, but something like a talent, when someone is incredible in art and you want to employ them to do the art, no, that requires deployment. It's a different thing altogether.
What's the difference if I'm an employer of this person?
Right.
How do I know this time?
You want somebody, and employment is just mind. It's your intellectual quotient. You're just hiring your skills because you studied. But deployment is mind, spirit, body, mind, and soul. Because then you are saying, even the way I am is part of my talent. Even my demeanor is part of my talent. Even my inclinations is part of my talent. So what I normally do then is that you would have then this thing as a graph. Say x-axis and y-axis. So from the top, say it's north.
Yeah, we can go over the graph.
Yes. So at the top, it's north, which is spirit. At the bottom, it's mind, which is 180. On the east, it's body, which is 90, and opposite that is the soul at 270. So then I'm saying to you, when you are developing your mindset, know that you are not just intelligence. Because if you are intelligence, you're going to act like you know it all and you're better than somebody. But if you are developing those faculties, then it means you would then focus on body. So when somebody then says, I'm exercising, or I'm eating well, or I'm managing my weight, you are no longer doing it from pressure of society. You are doing it because your deployment and your skill and your talent and your gift will need this body for you to work. You are honoring this body. One of the things I don't like is when people say, deny the body, where people don't have a good relationship with the body. People don't know how to touch themselves. They don't know what it feels like to have a body, because they're scared of certain things. You're too obese, you're too short, you're too this, you're too that, you're too dark, you're too... No. Do your 90 degrees and focus on this body, because under that body there is health capital. There is the health resource that you can develop. A person who knows how energy affects their food, or their food affects their energy, vice versa. It means they have a relationship with their body. A person that they know, if they're a morning person or an evening person, they must pick cues from the body. A person that knows, if I'm allergic to this or I'm fluish on this season, they must have that. It means you are paying attention to your body. That's 90 degrees. Now, under that, then there's the mind, which is what people know already. You go to school and develop that. So psychological capital is already there. You are smart. You are smart at this thing you do. We already know that. Then 270, then is soul. Soul, by the way, remember, it's human capital. It's what HR hires. Often when you say, I'm smarter, I'm the greatest, I think I know it all, you won't get that job. But if you say, I'm a people's person, I support others, I'm about vision, all of a sudden like, oh, we want him or we want her. Why? You're speaking to the soul of that organization, which is then human capital. And then at the top then is 3-6, which is the spirit, which is spiritual capital. But even between spirit and body, you are dealing also with family. You are dealing with finance between body and mind, and you are dealing with career between mind and soul, and you're dealing with calling between soul and spirit. And I don't want to bombard people on this episode because we're going to unpack this as we go.
We'll unpack it as we go.
But then all of a sudden then, it means there is more than my mind to develop. Can you see on this graph?
Yeah.
There's more than just me being intelligent. Because then when I go then to calling, which is social capital, then I want to know what moves people about me. Then I know when it's family and it's cultural capital, then I want to know what makes me Umzulu. And therefore I can switch from my English to be Umzulu. And therefore there's nothing bad about it. Why? Because it's also a capital I'm building. It's a resource I'm building. And therefore, I'm not less of an intelligent man just because ngumzulu. And therefore, ngikwazi ukukhuluma isiZulu esiqosheme nasasekhaya ngakhula ngaso sebele. I'm not going to leave it, because for me to be umuntu okhuluma isiLungu, then it doesn't mean I'm a straight one. Why? I'm holistic in my approach. And therefore, you are now accumulating and developing where even the experiences you go through are part of making you. They're part of your story. The bad things that happen are part of your story. The good things that are happening are part of your story. Someone hurting you, it's part of your story. You hurting others, it's part of your story. You forgive and move on. Why? You are now looking at these resources that you're building. But school often says just focus on psychological capital. Can you think it? Are you good at it? Do it. But at what cost?
When you look at this, what do you think is the one that's most ignored?
All of them except psychological capital or human resource. Or everyone thinks I need a smartest person. That's the danger. When people are doing interviews and recruiting, I often see people looking for, I want the smartest person. All you are looking for is intelligence then. But what about the fact that you want someone who can bring people together? People who has harmony, or someone who has positivity in their talents. So I found that with the 10 capitals, people often focus on few than the most. But yes, the most one that people look at. And often you'd find that spirit is the most exaggerated. Because also I looked at people and their relationship with God, and I was like, God, I don't want this relationship.
What would you have seen to say that?
Who would make me drink petrol and eat grass? And no. I don't want that gospel. No. A gospel where someone is in front of me, instead of being kind and nice to them, I'm praying to God. But it's here. I want someone to date and they're sitting across me. I'm not engaging them to share. And I'm praying, Lord, do your magic here. No. I don't want that relationship. I want a relationship where I understand that there's natural and supernatural. I'm in charge of the earth according to God. I'm in charge of this earth according to God. The Bible says that. So I was like, God, if I'm in charge of this earth, then I can't be a moaner and a bickerer and complainer then.
True.
I must come to you to submit to you as my God. But as you help me, then I want to be a God over my own life and my own situation. And when you're a parent, you're even a God there, because your kids look to you as a God. So I wanted that relationship that was sort of fair with God. I was tired of complaining and blaming God for things that I didn't even know how. And guess what? I got to realize even the Bible that we look at, often we misread it.
Yeah.
That Bible was written in the context of those people and those lives. But when you take the living word of God, the living word of God is inside us. The Bible must be a reminder, but something in us must agree with what we are reading.
Yeah.
People think, no, I was just honor and worship what I'm reading. If you're just reading and worshiping, you're just performing. It's an imposter syndrome there. Take what you're reading, apply it. When we can sense the gospel in your life, as we interact with you, that's more a great gospel and my kind of gospel than the one that shouts on rooftops and all of that. So I went back and said, God, I want to do your spiritual quotient as well and your spiritual capital. I want to understand. Take me through David. I'm not just reading David I read my Bible today. I want to understand his time, what kind of a man he was. Would I have been like that? Why did he do it like this? And then when you say there was Paul, was Saul, I want to know what happened and imagine my own life there. All of a sudden, the Bible became alive.
All right.
And now that I've even read it, I'm no longer now picking based on it's just the Bible. If you are saying you are doing Quran, I'm still okay. I just want to know what's the God in that Quran. Because I don't want to limit God or try and defend God. The relationship of God can be personal and also universal. So it taught me. So what I'm saying is that probing these things made me to learn more.
Learning.
And I didn't probe with family because they didn't know much. I'll ask them, they'll say that's how it's always been. But I wasn't happy with just that. So reading books meant I was researching. I wanted answers to these things. So if you were to debate with me about God, I wouldn't quote what my pastor used to say. I'll quote about my own experience as being with God. And hope, evil, suffering, death. I've imagined my own death. I know that how I want it to be. I've had it in my spirit to say I want it to be like that. To challenge myself to be able to do that, because when your death must be imagined like that, it means you want to do it to a point where it resembles, or it's that. You've lived it to that point. So what I'm then saying in total, as we close then this segment or this section, Masego, is as the minute you see this graph then and what your mind can do, you then realize it's all here. All these things I'm talking about are here in me.
Okay.
They are part of me. Whether you call it chakras and energy, or you call it amadlozi nokuthi uhamba naliphi idlozi, kumina I can always bring that conversation to that level and make you see God in those things. So I'm not threatened by your belief and whatever. There's one God, one universal God. I want us to find each other there. It challenges you because then it questions your own belief and stuff.
True.
But if someone is an antichrist, I'm able also to be tolerant to them and show them through the antichrist and debate with them to that point
There's a
as well.
God in what you're doing.
Yes, because then it means I've developed. So live life. Don't live around it. Live life. And in the experiences that we are facing, that's part of then, one day those will be prophets because they are part of your processes.
That is wonderful. If you have questions about any part of the segment, please leave them in the comment. I promise you, in the next rounds, we will answer a lot of the questions that you throw in. They don't even have to be about what we've talked about. If you want to ask my mentor anything about if you feel there's a question that you would have asked if you were in this seat, I want to hear that question. I want to read that question. The last two questions. I think this one should be easy for you. When you look back at your life, do you look and find moments where you have regrets? Like,
Okay. No.
and why?
Every experience of mine has served a purpose. I'm not just doing that for cliche purposes. The reason why I'm this clear in my speaking on values and life and stuff is because I've got scars. Remember? So I've experienced life. I've experienced life. So, for instance, I was married for 7 years, and at some point I felt stagnant. We're in the church with my ex-wife and felt stagnant. And I remember saying to her, please divorce me. This hunger that we're going through doesn't work for me. And then she's like, why? I was like, okay, I want to sort of fly. I want to do more. And at the time, guess what was I doing? I was justifying my mind, but I was using family. I was corrupting family to justify my own frustrations as a man. So I cut that thing out, meaning I cut my wife out and I cut my family out, and I went and ran. So I was being narrow in my approach. I was doing just one thing. I thought that one thing will do. And you then chase the money, and now you miss the family. But it's not either or.
Yeah.
And these things are not mutually exclusive. So then you'd say then, do I regret that? Oh yeah, at the time, because it didn't have to cost me getting divorced. But do I regret that I got divorced? When I got divorced, then I can go back and say to those who are about to get married, get married for the right reasons, but also divorce for right reasons.
Yeah.
So it's me, Masego, who's decided that my life then is going to be an example. It's going to be a university for other people, because the universe has been my university. So even the things that would have upset me at the time, or made me uncomfortable, or made me frustrated, I may not forget those experiences, but the people that brought those to me, I forgive them. Why? I become stronger when those are thrown at me. But as I get older, though, I no longer need the scars. I'm okay. I think being young, you are rushed, you are whatever, you don't want to listen. But as you go through life, you get to be wiser. The wiser me now would have done it differently. But do I regret it? Not at all. But also the nice thing is that whatever I've started, ended, or failed at, I decided wholeheartedly. There was no one else deciding for me. That's another thing as well, is that I hate to be pushed out. I hate to be forced. I hate to be forced people to be coercing me, because then I'm going to blame you for those things when they go wrong.
Yeah.
But when I decide, and I'm convinced at the point of deciding, if it's wrong, I would accept the lesson.
You can live with it.
And move on. Yeah. So no regrets at all. No, not at all.
Last question. What can we look forward to? I know we are launching your YouTube channel. Look out for this one. Yes. In the next 2 weeks, from the time you see this episode, the channel is going to be called Ask Mnqobi. We'll put a link in the description. So we can look forward to that. But you're writing a book, and there's a couple of things you're working on. What's in your heart when it comes to the future?
So literally, I'm doing God's work. But it's the kind of work where I said, God, I don't want to be in the pulpit preaching. No, I want to grow the kingdom of God through business. So one of the things I'm passionate about now, which is different, because all along as an aloof thinker, I was sort of quiet and I didn't want to speak much. I didn't want to help much. And when I changed, and I was like, God, I really want to build communities now. So networking is big for me. So be on the lookout then, because you'd find that in different cities, when I enter those spaces, I want us to have communities there.
Communities for networking.
For networking purposes. Why? Sometimes life will isolate you and you'd feel like you're on your own. And it does that. Look how frustrated we were during COVID, because it's more frustrated to be quarantined and be on your own.
Yeah.
But those that were with family could handle the pressure. So then I'm saying to people, one of the things that I would have done differently as a young me, I would have gone back and managed relationships better. So I'm doing that. So earlier today, we sat and you saw us launch something very incredible, which is also, people will hear about it in time. So I'm just now doing God's work to say, let's unite. So I'm looking for those things that are barriers between people. And that's the evil that must be removed, whether race or gender or status or classism or political ideologies or whatever. I look for those and I want to remove those. And I say to you, when I look at you, I look at myself and I look at my brother. And I'm my brother's keeper. And by the way, you and I have been here. We've never transacted financially, but we've done so much. We've done so much that is valuable and worth it and sort of costly. But we've never had to sort of transact. But you are my brother. It's a short space of time, but you've invested time in it. I've known you for a short space of time as my brother and as mentoring you, but the amount of hours we've put, the investment is great.
True, it's great and valuable for me as well.
Me too, by the way. Remember, that's a thing about mentoring. You can't mentor someone and remain the same. It changes you as well, because it challenges you. What you are saying remains true for you, and therefore it becomes a standard by which you must be tested or test yourself. So I'm big on that now. So then I'm saying, you are trying so hard. I see that you want to put me out there, and I've been refusing for years to be out there, and I'm accepting now. I'm saying it now on the camera. I'm accepting for you, Masego, to say you're going to put me out there. I'm ready. I'm really ready. I'm now in the podcast world. I'm watching a lot of podcasts. I'm learning more on podcasts. There are podcasts that I love now. About 30 podcasts that I watch that are different. Some spiritual. All these things that we're speaking about in terms of the diagrams, I try and find an expert or a scholar or a teacher there for me to learn more of. Because though they are within me, they're not going to brew out of me. Somebody else must teach me those things. But as I see those, then I get to find alignment and that. So be on the lookout for that, and let's just do this, man. I love communities. I love, I went to this award ceremony, and there was this man that was speaking about a Christian on that presentation, and was speaking about the importance of consistency versus intensity. He was saying those that succeed are those that are more consistent than those that are intense. So it's not how forceful you do it, it's how many times you do it. So I want to do that as well. Now that we've started, my good say, I'm availing myself. You out there, tell us what you think. Let's grow together. But for me, this Mindset Profits podcast that you run, I'm supporting my brother at it. And I want to have conversations about, I agree with you. Let's help others. Allow even other guests to come and share their stories. So the next time you hear somebody being interviewed by Masego, I don't want you to just listen to them. Think about the mindset profit we spoke about. What were the decisions they made? What were the important junctures in their lives? And you'd realize then that we are only amplifying what you'll be doing in making sure that there's clarity, but also a conversation around our own mindsets. You know?
I'm glad I had this episode. I'm glad you picked up that I had missed that critical step.
Here is a sad part, Ndando.
Yeah.
A mindset works like concrete. If you're doing a concrete slab, it's wet. The longer you leave it, it does what? It sets. It sets.
I almost want to get scared.
Once it sets, though, it's immovable. What people don't realize that the mind that you have that is open when you are young, as you get older, it's like concrete. It sets. One day you can't do things you could do. What happened? The mind set, the concrete set. So being youthful and young is great. It's an honor because you can still fix your mud. You can still fix, you can put water and sort of fix your cement and add this and do whatever and allow it. But once it sets, my brother, the person you'd marry, the kids you'd raise, the community in which you'd live, the business or struggles you'd face are all going to be on that foundation of the mindset that you've built. So take it seriously, because whether you like it or not, even indifference or indecision is a decision with mindset. One day you look back, you are to blame because you let it set without changing. That's it. If you're not profits are you are deliberate about profits. So work on this thing while you can, because as time goes on, it gets exposed to life itself. Therefore, your faith is set, your values are set, what angers you is set. All of a sudden, you can slit somebody's throat and not feel the pain. Why? You are so inhuman. The mindset, it's now fixed. I can't take a knife and slit somebody's throat. Why? I'm scared of what it will do. Why? I don't have that mindset. But give me an opportunity to do it over and over and over. It becomes easier. The same way then with the positive stuff, the more you do it, the more
easier
it sets. And before you know it, the concrete is already there. May you guys then continue building on your mindset and its profits and working your ways as a business and as a brand to get to a point where you want your mindset to profit you well in terms of family, finance, career, and calling, but also in terms of spirit, body, mind, and soul.
I can say no more. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and hanging with us till this time. Remember, please share this episode. Ask again if you have questions on anything that was shared, if you have questions that you feel we should answer in the next episodes and in the series we're going to develop on mindset, drop them in the comment.